Okay, so this is the A level, and I'm going to teach you how to do synthetic division. And what makes this A level is you're going to now, having already learned box or long division, you'll now have learned another way to divide polynomials. And you'll see in a moment why we don't teach synthetic division first. So I also want to point out something important at the end of the video. So when it seems like I'm done, don't turn it off yet. I've got one more thing to kind of show you on the back of the paper. So I'm going to walk you through this. Synthetic division only works, well, not only, but it is best when the factor looks like this. So you'll notice here that we have a divisor x plus 4. So we want it to look something like that. We don't want a number in front of the x. We want this to just be a plus some kind of constant. So maybe not factor, we might say divisor. That might be a better term here. Okay, or sometimes I'll already tell you what the x equals, and you'll see why that matters, and there's an example on the back. I can point it out. So we'll kind of walk through this problem. And obviously I'm not on Edpuzzle, so we can cross that off. So this is division. This is just another way to divide. So our answer will be a quotient. And here's our dividend, here's our divisor. When we set it up, it's going to look a little different than what you've seen before. So we are going to take each of these coefficients, and the coefficients are the numbers in front of each of these terms, and we're going to write them 2, 7. Keep the sign on it if there's a sign on it. So I'm writing the coefficients of each of those terms, and notice I'm not missing any terms here, so I don't need to put a placeholder, but as before, if there's a missing a term, you definitely have to put that placeholder. Then I'm going to put this like kind of upside down division sign thing. Notice I left all this space right here. You have to continue to leave that space. Please don't draw the line like right under here, because you'll see in a moment why that kind of screws it up a little bit. All right, so what we're going to do is divide by this, but we're going to transform it into a root. So right now this is a factor. Well, it's also a divisor, and we're going to transform it. And the way that we do that is set it equal to 0 and solve for x. Now, you might be thinking to yourself like, wow, Mr. Alf, why don't I just switch the sign? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Just switch the sign. If you don't want to show me this, that's totally fine. You are really just switching the sign of that number right there, because I'm never going to put something in front of here that will make it fractional and like, oh, it's just like a mess. So we're not going to do that. So this is the setup of synthetic. So the first thing you're going to do, again, we wrote those coefficients and we wrote them in order. We accounted, make sure there was one for each of these. If there was a missing term, we'd put a 0. All right, so here's the thing about synthetic. All you're doing operation-wise is multiplying and adding. I know that sounds weird because it's a division problem, but that's how synthetic works. So you're going to bring down this 2. It does not change. And what I'm going to do is repeat the same steps over and over and over again for each column, just like we did in the other ways we divided. So I'm going to do -4 times 2, and I'm going to get -8. So I multiplied, and now I'm going to add them. So 7 plus -8 is -1. I'm going to multiply these. -4 times -1 is 4. And then I'm going to add this column, and I get -2. And I'm going to keep repeating this process until I hit the end. So -4 times -2 is 8. And then I'm going to add these. -8 plus 8 is 0. Okay, well, that just looks like a list of numbers. So I'm going to tell you how to interpret this, because we actually want it to be a quotient that actually looks like a polynomial. So I like to label these working backwards. This first one, or on the end here, is always going to be your remainder. Well, you'll probably notice I have a remainder 0. That means this is actually a factor of this dividend, because my remainder is 0. This is always going to be the next one right here is going to be your constant. And then we're going to start labeling them going up in terms of exponents on the x. So this is just the plain x. This is the x squared. If I had another term here, it would be the x cubed. If I had another term here, it would be the x to the 4th. Another tip might just help is it's always going to be 1 less than what you started with. So I started with x cubed, and my final quotient is x squared. So my actual quotient is 2x squared minus x, if you want to put the 1 there, you can, minus 2. And then I have no remainder, so I'm actually not going to write anything there. And it says down here, don't need to write the summary statement from the video. We don't even need to worry about that because I made a whole new video for you. Okay, so you might be saying like, wow, this seems kind of easy. Okay, good. So you're going to practice number 2, and it says make sure your teacher checks this before moving on. Please make sure one of us checks this because we don't want you to make an error and then continue to make the error in the other problems. So you're going to do that by yourself. We're going to check it. You're going to move on to 3, 4, and 5. Let's talk about number 6 for a second. It says use synthetic division to evaluate the function. This just means you are dividing, but here's what I want you to notice. This looks different than this. This is a factor that you would have to set equal to 0, and then, really you're dividing by -2. This is already in that form. So don't switch the sign on this. And in fact, I might just start setting you up on this one already. This is going to be a 2. And then you'll have your other coefficients up here. So just be really careful with that. I will let you know right now on the A-level test, the questions, there are 2 of them, they look like 6 and 7, and they look like number 9. So if you're like, oh, I understand it and I'm done with the first 2 problems, give me the test, that's not going to happen because this is a little bit more complicated than just, oh, I'm going to do some division. You're actually kind of interpreting some things here and doing something a little bit more rigorous than just applying the synthetic division. So good luck. Please ask questions if you need help, and that's it.